Welcome to the tutorial and promo for the Fabrication Auto Switch Tool. This tool will help you to be faster in the population of your BIM models for fabricated parts. So as you can see here, we got the program. We'll just click that. It starts up. And you get a window that looks like this. So at the beginning, it connects an updater, but in the event that it doesn't connect for whatever reason, it may give you a minor error that you can log a report for. But you should be able to recreate the updater. So in the event that it's not connected for whatever reason, that will allow you to connect it again. And then in the event that doesn't work, you can restart the program or anything like that. It also is useful in the event that if for whatever reason the updater crashes. I have seen it happen. It doesn't happen very often, and it's usually due to some interface, and it's usually due to some placement of an item. It happens at random, or at least it had happened at random. We should have ironed it out, but it could show up again in the event, possibly, so you never know. But just to be sure, in the event that it closes or deletes the updater, you can recreate it. And the program also runs an initial fab list update, so it'll pull all the services, all the buttons and stuff like that, and put them into the program so it can use them. If you ever update your services, just click this again and it should update everything that you've repopulated. Be sure to do that, because if you don't do that, it can cause problems. Run through a quick few things here. The program's only designed for the same document, so it's loaded to this document. Using it in another document is not suggested. If you need to use it in another document, you should probably close this program and then open it again while that document's open, and that should fix that. You might need to, as we mentioned, you might need to update the fab list if you update or reload your database. This tool is for part connecting. Things like couplings that delete when parts are placed will probably fail. So if you have like a coupling that gets placed between the two fab parts, if you place the coupling and then place the new fab part, it will delete the coupling in the process of updating this, and it won't connect correctly. So what you'll want to do is just connect fab part to fab part. And then this tool will only trigger if it's a mismatch. So if you ever have a duct of type A connect to a type B duct, it will then trigger this program. If you do A to A, it's not going to trigger. We're looking into updating that for a future variation of this program when if we ever get around to updating that aspect of it, because we do think it would be beneficial, but currently that's not in the works right now. But if we see more like interest in it, stuff like that, we might add it in sooner than later. But we do want to do it eventually, so keep an eye out for that. So what we have here is a quick example project with a few parts placed into it, kind of erratically, different types of services used. That's what you can see from the different colors. So like each color is a different service. Don't mind these like archaic placed objects in the background. Those are just used for like testing purposes. So this should be a relatively quick tutorial. We're just going to run through a few things here. Let's run through this quick note on program notes as well. There's a lot of little details to this, because while we were trying to set this up, there were a lot of little like walls that kind of were in our way due to Autodesk's API in the background. So there have been situations we tried to work with, tried to go around, and these are just the best that we could do. We hope to eventually lower the amount of things here, but we think that the tool still does a majority of what it's supposed to do, up to like 95%. There's situations with tap placement that can be a pain, and we can't support oval duct properly right now. So these are the most difficult things we had to kind of put on the cutting room floor. It just kind of happens. But the majority of the program does work, and you'll see it when we get to the demoing process. but we want to mention in here, there will sometimes be an error that breaks the updater. That's what we mentioned with the recreate updater part. It's not suggested to place a cut-in part that would connect two different services. So if there's two services that are right next to, like two straights that are next to each other, and you place an inline part onto one of those such a way that it would overlap another one, it'll try to connect the two of them. That's not suggested. We don't really know how that will go, but that's probably not something that should happen very often because, you know, there's no reason to do that. So just don't do that, we'd suggest, but, you know, you're free to do what you want with it. Just don't expect it to work. Using previous part info may not always be perfect. Sometimes there could be, we'll cover this more when we go over the stored info stuff, but it's not guaranteed to be perfect. We've done as best as we can to support maintaining part information because, once again, Revit API has kind of gotten in the way of this process. So we had to make a background system that can store this information because otherwise we'd use the normal Revit services, but it's not available to it. And we'll explain it a bit more when we get to it. Some items may fail to convert. In the event they fail to convert, they will be flagged here in the risk and concern section. It's a risk if it's yellow, as in you might want to just double check the part, make sure it's connected or whatever. We usually capture that information, and if it's red, it has failed. So that part has not converted correctly or has not been placed correctly, and it should be deleted unless you really believe it's fine the way it is, but we suspect it will most likely need to be deleted. But it gives you the ID of the part, so you can search the ID and it'll select it, no problem. You'll probably be able to see it and you'll know when it happens, so you probably won't need it, but in the event you do, there's the list. Hangers that are not found for a service will self-auto delete. So if you place a hanger and it doesn't belong to that service, or it's not possible for it to work for that part, it will delete itself. We'll see an example of that. Hangers are not considered in previous placement info, so they will not populate here. The only things that populate here are just any parts that are just normal standard parts, valves and stuff like that. Actually, I don't remember if valves will apply or not. They may, but I know that hangers will not. Hangers are not an applicable thing. Taps was one of our difficulties. We could not get a lot of them to work. We tried our best, and we got a good chunk of them working, but they're still a bit quirky sometimes. Taps that fail to be placed correctly can be attempted again. You'll be asked about the situation, and you can deal with it as it's shown, as we have a section here about automatically dealing with that in the event you're placing a bunch of taps. But it will attempt to place it again because we have a method to do it, but it's not perfect, and it will be placed in yellow if it succeeds, and if it fails, it'll be placed in red. And they will likely, if they fail to place correctly, they may not be connected to the straight that they're connected to. Once again, API for Autodesk is kind of in the way for this. We tried a few different methods. Also, you have to use an item that was already based as a tap. So like this tap is a tap, but if I place this transition as a tap, it will not connect. So keep that in mind. If it is designed as a tap, it should work. And then oval duct, we had a lot of issues with it, so you can use oval duct and stuff like that, but you can't place taps on it. So square taps, oval taps, whatever taps you can place on it, you won't be able to here. It won't work. And I think that gets marked as a fail as well. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the things that we can do here. So I think we're ready to go straight into showing it off because it's pretty intuitive. It doesn't really need an awful lot of explaining, but it's just that some of the getting used to the new program is the upfront difficulty. But it's not like that hard to understand, I don't think. All right. So how do I want to do this? So let's go ahead and show an example of what the program is meant to do. So right now, the program is active. You can click this button to inactivate it so that it won't automatically convert parts that you place. Generally, you're going to want it active because so long as this program is running, it will intercept mismatch places. It'll say they're okay, and then it'll attempt to convert the part. So if you turn this off, it will complain about it. In fact, I can give you a show of that because I do know that worked that way. So let's say I have this service, which is negative 2WG, right? And these are all positives, right? Positive 2WG, positive 2WG. Actually, sorry, I was looking at that. This is the service. So this is type C, this is type B, this is type A, and then this is type A negative. So now none of these services are the same as each other. So if I place a negative onto one of these services, you'll see there's a mismatch. It can't do it, or I can continue place, or whatever I want to do with that, right? That gets intercepted when this is running. So if I turn it on, now if I take this this type A negative, and place it on any of these positives, it will place it and it will convert it. So now instead of being said that it is a mismatch, it turned it into that new part. So now I can just like quickly build whatever I want to build and not have to put much more thought into it, right? So this allows me to quickly switch between things, and it works for all sorts of different services. Let's say I want to go down and then I want to go up. These are rather erratic directions, but if you wanted to do them, they're available to you. And as you can see, I just built like these two sets of duct without any issues and without having to switch service. I just place the part that I know I need. And because this part exists in this service, it places it. So this is what the program really allows you to do. It allows you to just go with the parts that you know you want, because these parts are all similar, right? Every one of these services has the same parts. So it slows you down to have to switch it and then find it and then place it and then edit it. So this program is designed to make that process not something you have to worry about. Now, you do have to worry about like it won't trigger a mismatch if you're placing it on the same stuff, obviously, on the same service. So when we start using stored info won't apply to a same service because it's not a mismatch. So you'll want to actually choose an incorrect matched item to then get it to use that information if you wanted to do that. So now let's go ahead and show let's show what a stored part will look like. So let's say that now usually in Revit, whenever you have a part, and this is due to the API for us, it's just not working with us for whatever reason. We're trying to find a way around it, but this isn't the end of the world. This is why we came up with this other system to try to deal with it. So let's say we have this part, we've put in flanges on it, and we place it, right? The next part we place will be flanged, right? That's just the default system for Revit. Whenever you place on the mismatch for us, so let's say, let's go ahead and just create a similar of this one. So now I have that same thing we had, and now I'm going to connect it to a mismatch. So now that has adjusted and placed it correctly, right? But now you'll see that the part I'm going to place does not have the flanges on it anymore. That's because the program has tried to go back to placement mode, which, due to the way the API works and stuff, it won't let us just maintain placement for the previous part. So if you make a flange part, it's not going to have the flanges on the next placement. So we had to come up with a method around this, and the method we came up with was to store the information. So let's say, I should have probably kept that part. Let's say I make a part with 1-inch flanges out, right? And let's say in fact I can just place it wherever if I want to. So I can place it there, right? So now there's a part that's been placed. What I can do is store the previous placed item into stored info. And as you can see, I pushed a 2L thing. It's fine. So as you can see, it tells you the part name for it, the part category. It's ductwork. This is important for like just keeping them generally in line, because this is obviously normal pipe. This is welded pipe. This is normal duct, right? So you'll still have to maintain some of that. You know, you can't put duct onto a pipe and a pipe onto a duct. That doesn't make sense. But here's the information of that part we just placed. You know, the insulation and all of that. And let's say you wanted to place a part and you wanted it to maintain reference level 3, even though you're placing it on level 2. Whatever reason you would have for doing that. The way this is set up right now, if I use the stored information on the next placed part, it will have level 3 on it. Now, if I say I don't know what I want the level to be, but I don't want it to be maintained along all the parts I place, well, I can turn off ignore reference level on the previous part. So what that'll do is every part I place, will place it with whatever reference level like is default set to, but it will not be level 3, because it would have been level 3 every time. Now it won't be. And you can also put this on information for other things like size, so it'll ignore like product entry and like its dimensions, or you could ignore secondary data. The secondary data is like image, comments. So if I put a comment on this, I could store that comment, and every item I place would have that comment on it, or I could disable it and now it won't put that comment on it. We're looking into expanding this ability a bit more, but currently this is going to have to do. We have a plan, but we're expecting like in the future update for that to be rolled out. Currently, though, it's not operable, so we're working on that. And then also there's this, the connector information. So you can see like the connectors that were stored were the flange out, 1 inch, 1 inch. And you can just ignore that too. So if I want it to not maintain the connectors, I can choose that, and then maybe I can turn on the other things I want to keep. But that's just a good explanation of how the sub info enables works. So I'm not too worried about maintaining these things, so I'll just keep them. Usually the size information isn't something we can maintain very well. I think a transition part would be a good example of a situation that we want to maintain, but it's kind of difficult to deal with it right now. There was something in the code that was it just would not work with it. So the only parts currently that will really maintain their size shaping is taps, because they're not connected to a part. Because when you connect it to a part, it tries to adjust the size of that part. So we're not able to maintain that in that way a lot of the time, unless it's a tap, because it doesn't change in size. So let's say, I have the stored information with the flanges out that I wanted, and now anytime I place the same type of part by name, because you can tell which one you had was straight cut 2L, so I grab that, and now wherever I place one, even though it looks like it's not going to be flanged, it's placed as flanged. So I can just run around, place flange parts wherever I want to, and have no problem with it. And so that's a good way to do like continued connectors and stuff, like flanges and all that. And there might be situations where I want to store, let's say, a different part. So let's say I have an elbow, so I want a radius elbow. I'm in the wrong type, so it'll be a mismatch, which is what I think I want, yes. And we'll make it, we'll make this one like a half outs instead. So there we go, half outs. And then I also want this part to be, let's say, 45 degree instead of a 90. Right? So I can place this, and it mismatched. Now, interestingly enough, it adjusts the end piece here. We're still not 100% sure why it does that, because it should have just maintained what the placement should be here. But either way, the item placed is correct. So in our data. So if I store previous, there's a radius elbow of 45 degrees, and both connectors were half. So if I delete that and then place a new part, since I'm using use previous info, when I place it, it'll be converted, and you'll see that it has the flanges correctly placed that time. So now I can just run around placing 45s without any issues, and smoothly just build around without having to change my my service. So that's some of the benefits of the tool here, of the program. And so that, I think, covers, honestly, I think that covers the majority of what the program's supposed to do. You can also place taps and stuff. So let's make sure I am in this service. So we're in this service, and I go to tap, and I place a tap onto this part. So there you go. See, the taps convert, no problem. Place it there, place it anywhere. Anywhere I want to put it is maintained. Now, as you can see, it didn't do anything with stored information, but that's because it's not the same part. So let's say I want to adjust this part. And we'll make this one, we'll make it simple again. We'll just do the 1 inch out, 1 inch out. Okay. And I can place it wherever I want. Store the previous data. And now it's stored as a tap and everything. And then if I take a normal tap and I just place it wherever I want, it is now placed with those rules applied to it. Right? See? It's a nice, easy way to quickly get your building populated. And we'll show off a little bit of a quick, like, build out over here. So that covers the majority of the taps and stuff like that. Now, the auto tap error, what this does is whenever a tap is placed, sometimes they're backwards, which is usually what causes the error. I'm not quite sure what happens because it's a weird situation. So as you can see, the slope is on the left. Well, if I move it around a few times, as you can see now, the slope is on the right. In the event the slope is on the right, it tends to cause an error. I don't know why. But if it does cause that error, the program attempts to deal with it, and it may mention a pop-up saying this was an incorrect placement or it failed to place in some way. Do you want to attempt again? And it will attempt to use the solution we have baked in to try to solve that problem, but it may move the duct, right? It may move the part in an attempt to do it. It's not supposed to, but it could happen. And in the event it fails, it will attempt to flag it. It will say that in red it's failed and all this stuff. So you can automate it, though, if you're in a big spree of placing taps or whatever. And you can disable the pop-up so that the pop-up that asks you if you want to deal with it won't show up. But if you don't have this checked, it will automatically deny it. And if it's denied, it will delete the part placement. So if you place a tap and it would have failed, it will just delete it because you said no to the auto choice. But if the auto choice is yes, whenever it's placed, it will accept it and attempt to place it again. And then you'll get your risks over here as you need. And if you ever need to clear this risk tree, because maybe you've dealt with this situation, because this doesn't clear automatically, you can figure out what part IDs you want to deal with, sort them out, and then you can hit the clear list button, and it'll clear this list so that you can continue with all the new stuff. So if you're ever building like a list of errors in here, you can just keep wiping them as you need be. I think that covers taps and it covers the main parts. The last thing is the hangers now. Let's go ahead and just clean these up because it's kind of going to be a pain to go around those with hangers. So let's go to hangers. So you're going to see the example now of what happens if you place a hanger on the incorrect discipline. So on duct to pipe, and then, you know, pipe to, you know, whatever, pipes or whatever, you know. So here we go. Let's go ahead and grab a trapeze hanger, right? So we're in, let's double check. I'll click this. We're in this service. We'll go to hangers. And we'll put a strut hanger on that. It's converted to red, converted to green, converted to blue. See that? I don't have to switch class or anything like that. Just place them. You're good to go. And it'll place whatever hanger you use. Square hanger. It even places one-sided hangers. So let's say I place it here. There you go, placed in blue. I go placed in blue over there. Place one there. No problem. And now we could do a round hanger. I don't know what's going to happen here, but it will attempt to place it on these, obviously, because Revit doesn't really know the difference. And when I attempt to place it, as you can see, it disappeared. That's because it failed and it automatically deleted it because this service doesn't have this hanger. It's not something it can apply to it. So if we go to this service, we've got our, 90s and 45s and stuff, and I can place those without any issues as I could with everything else. So it still works. I can just pick one of them and just keep going. So the same rules apply as they did over here to these. And as you place them, you can store them as well. And since these are pipe, these will work differently. So I can store my straight part that I made, which I could make shorter, and then it'll store the shortened version. But as you can see, solo joint, pipe work, and then it gives all the information and the breakdown of what it is that was placed. And you can continue using it. Now I'm going to turn that off because I don't want to accidentally place something I've already got stored. Let's go ahead and put hangers on. So we got clevis hangers. So put that here. I think that might have been the service I was in. There's a service I wasn't in. There's a service I wasn't in. Here's the larger variations. It might take a second for it to adjust, but once it's there, it's adjusted. So I can use this service to populate all of these pipes because they're all the same. Now, this is a different service. And as you can see, it failed. It's not able to place that one because that one's not universal between them. However, this trapeze one, you can place onto these parts, right? But it also happens to be this has them as well. So now those have been placed, and I didn't have to switch to even that service because it just so happens that this service has those available, those hangers to it. So that goes to show you how effective this program is in allowing you to quickly populate a building, because you can just pick a service that you know is going to be not a service you're using currently, and then just put together whatever you want. So you could be in a building and you can just kind of go with what you have, put in a T. In fact, I should show the inline as well. So you can just start populating a building without any issues. Let's say I want to, I didn't show this. Let's say I wanted to specifically copy this part's information, but I didn't want to place that part to get it. You can select part stored info and grab that one. And now I have a straight part, fabrication duct, 1-inch flanges on each side, which is what it was. But perhaps I have like a mark or whatever installed in this. Like maybe I put a comment in here. Like let's put a comment in. We'll prove this. Test comment. So there you go. There's a test comment there. And if I select part info to store and click it, and then you can also clear info if you ever want to like just wipe that empty. But let's say I select it. Well, now it's going to be stored, and as you can see in comments, test comment. So anything I place, if I use the previous part and place it, those are all getting placed just fine. However, you'll notice in the comments section, test comment. They all have the comments in them. So I probably want to ignore secondary data. Alright, so now when I place it, this one will not have that. See? Comments is empty. So I can use that to quickly populate the building and just have it go off to the side and continue placing. There you go. And then you can use, let me grab this service. Alright, and then we'll place this pipe. And we'll grab the other service. And we'll do a 90-degree here. And then we'll go forward, and we'll go however much we want to go, I don't know, 1,000. And we'll turn right. And we'll continue straight. There you go. Like, you can quickly throw out parts and start getting them assigned without any issues. Quickly build stuff. Let's go ahead and switch to this service. Get hangers. And put down some hangers along the way. We want to hang on that one. Hang over here. See that? So you can quickly populate your building with this. It'll make it much smoother, much faster, and you can even use some of the information copying tools. So like the comments, if you wanted to copy a comment or mark down a whole set of parts, you could kind of maintain that this way as well. So I think that this accelerates a lot of the process of placing parts, and with a program like this available, I think that a lot of the time that you spend building and populating a building can be reduced, allowing people to move on to other parts of the building and other aspects that need to be maintained and managed, rather than constantly working slowly, putting together things. Because one of the things that sucks is if you ever have to, oh, actually, there was one more thing I should show. One of the things that sucks is if you have to, like, click on a part and you gotta show the service, then you gotta find the part you want, then you gotta adjust it, place it, and then you have to go to a different service every time you switch. It's just more time spent. It's just not worth it. But I also wanted to point out one other thing. Oh, yes. Okay, so let's say we have a long part. This also works with inline placement. So we'll select this service. So we're in the green service, and we want to place a T in line. You just do that, and it'll place it. Also, I should have shown round as well. So for round duct, it's slightly different because whenever you cut into the part, it tends to put down couplings. So go to round duct, place down some spiral, and as you can see, when it's connected, you got a coupling right here because these are raw spiral pipes, so you need to have that coupling there. So let's say I want to pick this service. Let's say I want to place a inline T, but I want it to be raw on all sides. Spiral raw, spiral raw. Okay, let's double check that I don't have like stored info on it. And let's place it inline. And place it. Now that was the wrong service, placed in line such that it would build couplings to connect, and it was able to do that without any issue and could put it in the correct service. So you don't have to worry about coupling placement. The only time you have to worry about coupling placement is if you were to place the coupling and then attempt to place a mismatched T onto that coupling, because it would delete the coupling, and then it wouldn't really know what to do with that. So don't do that. That's the only situation you have to really worry about for that. So, like I said, I think this is a huge boost. I really would like to see people get this tool because I think it does help a lot. So if you guys want it, you can see it on the Autodesk store and on our website. Thank you for checking this out, and I hope it can be of use to you and your company to help you build your models faster.